Applied research is a type of research design that seeks to solve a specific problem or provide innovative solutions to issues affecting an individual, group, or society. Applied research creates knowledge within the framework of real-world problems, resulting in actionable, data-driven improvements for stakeholders. In the New York dairy industry, applied research has been utilized to improve the quality and safety of dairy foods, develop new products and processes, and respond rapidly to emerging challenges and opportunities. The Milk Quality Improvement Program, or MQIP, has been conducting applied research for over 40 years, with numerous examples of successful outcomes benefiting the New York dairy industry. For example, the production of cottage cheese in New York showed steady declines throughout the 1980s. Cornell researchers stepped in and, through a targeted surveillance program, ultimately developed a technique that extended the cottage cheese shelf life from 21 days up to 90 days. Today, New York State continues to be the U.S. leader in manufacture of this product, processing over 25% of the nation's cottage cheese. The impact of the applied research conducted in the MQIP relies heavily upon the mutually beneficial partnerships developed throughout the New York dairy industry continuum. To illustrate, in the years following the September 11th terrorist attacks, concerns emerged regarding the potential for intentional contamination of the U.S. fluid milk supply with the deadly Clostridium botulinum toxin. In response to these concerns, the International Dairy Foods Association urged U.S. processors to considerably increase pasteurization temperatures to reduce the activity of toxin added to the milk supply, despite lack of evidence that this increase would have any substantial impact on the safety of the food supply. As processors complied with these recommendations, they also began to notice that the shelf lives of their products were decreasing. They suspected that the increase in pasteurization temperature had caused this shift. New York fluid milk processors approached MQIP staff for assistance, and with funding from the Dairy Promotion Board, an applied research project was conducted to determine the impact of increasing pasteurization temperatures on the shelf life of fluid milk. The outcome was counterintuitive, yet validated what processors observed. Raising pasteurization temperature caused bacteria to grow faster in the finished product, thereby reducing the product shelf life. Ultimately, the work of the MQIP, in partnership with fluid milk processors in New York and dairy farmers through DPO funding, led to this recommendation being rescinded, resulting in longer fluid milk shelf lives. The unique applied research needs of the New York dairy industry match the diverse portfolio of dairy foods processing in New York. Unlike other dairy states, where the majority of manufacturing is in one or two product categories, New York boasts robust processing capacity in all major dairy foods categories, including fluid milk, cheese, dairy powders, ice cream, yogurt, and other cultured dairy products. Ensuring the continued diversity and success of the New York dairy industry requires supporting all of these categories with applied research. Current DPO-funded applied research in the MQIP impacts and supports all major dairy foods processing in New York through our core program, the Dairy Product Quality and Safety Program, as well as through supplemental projects. Importantly, investments in applied research by New York dairy farmers through checkoff dollars has a multiplicative effect, as the MQIP leverages these funds to attract additional non-DPO funding for applied research in dairy foods that ultimately benefits the New York dairy industry. Although there are many examples of how the applied research conducted in the MQIP has benefited the New York dairy industry, it's important to acknowledge that without continued funding of applied research projects, the New York dairy industry will be at a significant disadvantage compared with other dairy states and, more importantly, compared with the increasing emergence of plant-based beverages and foods. The plant-based food market was valued at nearly $5 billion in 2019, the majority of which was sales of plant-based milk alternatives, representing a 29% market increase from 2017. This growth in plant-based dairy alternatives is driven by the tens of millions of dollars being invested in research by government organizations and interest groups. Continued investment into applied research in dairy foods is essential to meet consumer needs and ensure continued growth of the New York dairy industry.